Yeah, Jeremy and I started dating in 2008, got engaged in 2009, and got married in 2010. And we were, attending the same church. His mom and stepdad and his little brother went there too. And I liked that they were involved. During our first year of marriage, a lot of things started happening. Our church was going through a shift. Jeremy's stepdad at the time really liked to have a lot of power, and he wanted control of our church in the way that, like, he had money. He wanted to build things for youth. We didn't have a lot of youth, but he thought if he built it, kids would want to come, kind of like the Field of Dreams mentality. He was basically trying to get permission from, like, the head of the Methodist, whatever, said, I will pay for it if I get to pick who the pastor is. And that is not how the Methodists work. He decided to start his own church with his own friend, superintendent of the school district, who was he was not recommended for rehire. He wasn't rehired. So they started their own church, which is actually this church. After our church split, we were left without a praise band. We were given 3 weeks and nobody was stepping up. It was like virtually a line of people that were like, these are all the people that could do it. And everyone stepped back and Jeremy and I were the ones standing there. So Jeremy and I started a praise band. So that's what we did for 7 years. And our church always just kind of struggled with authentic worship or passion, and I didn't understand. This whole time I had been teaching, I had some issues. I was getting bullied at my teaching job by the administrator, and I even had like other teacher friends who were trying to stand up for me to basically let me keep my job because I was not recommended for rehire. Nobody understood it. Didn't make sense. I still try to make sense of it, and I have to let it go because God has different plans. So, bullied, put on an improvement plan, did all the things that they told me to do, still was not recommended for rehire. So I opted to resign because when you're a teacher and you are not recommended for rehire, you have to like check a box whenever you apply for a position for the rest of your teaching career that have you ever been not recommended for rehire? You have to click yes. I didn't want to do that because why would anybody look at my application after that? 1 year into marriage, I don't have a job. I had to figure out what to do. My ultimate dream was to be a stay-at-home mom, but we were not ready. We were just starting to think about having kids. So I found a position teaching kindergarten at a daycare. It was a really awesome daycare. You had to have your master's degree to teach there. And so I taught 3 and 4-year-olds. They're hot messes, aren't they? I took a huge pay cut, huge. But in doing that, it got Jeremy and I used to living on less. So that was June of 2011. Then in August, Jeremy's little sister got diagnosed with stage 2B cervical cancer. So all this in 1 year of marriage, division in family, job loss, illness. And neither one of us, we had never had someone close to us who had gone through cancer. So we didn't even know what to expect. We had no idea. So Jeremy's sister's going through cancer treatments. She's 29, 3 small kids. Jeremy's mom and stepdad are starting this church, and we are left behind. I didn't think I was gonna cry. So yeah, after 15 months, Heather going through treatment, she just got too sick and couldn't fight it. When Wyatt was 6 weeks old, she passed away. And Jeremy's family was just kind of crumbling. So now I have this baby that I want to be nurtured in a church, and how am I supposed to raise my kids in a church where there's no kids? And I didn't know what to do, and I kept on telling Jeremy, I'm like, I want to go somewhere else. I want to find a church where there's kids and people who love kids and want them to grow. Not that our church didn't want him to grow, but there just wasn't like a passion. There wasn't a passion. When something hard happens, I'm always like, what's the reasoning behind this? Like, what's God trying to teach me? I don't know if it's ever fully answered, or you don't fully understand or see what God's doing. And Yeah. When Wyatt was 15 months old, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. They lived in Michigan, and it's about an 8-9 hour drive depending on how fast you go. When I would drive out to Michigan to go see my dad, I didn't know how to feel. I didn't want to be mad at God for what was happening because my dad had such a peace. He actually said when he wasn't quite diagnosed, but we knew there were issues, that he was excited to see what God was doing with this. He said, I don't know if it's going to be 4 weeks, 4 days, 4 months, or however long I'm going to have to do this. But I know that God's with me and that it's just a part of my story. And I'm so excited for that. So I knew on our drive, we would drive through Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then Michigan. And I knew where all the Christian stations were. I had them all programmed on my radio. And when one went out, I went to the next one because I just needed that influence. I couldn't deal, and I didn't know what to do. So I was just like, God, I need you to just be with me and just help me deal. And every month I would drive out to Michigan, just Wyatt and I. I'm so grateful that I got to have that time because I knew my dad was terminal. I knew it was terminal and his brain was affected, and it was like playing 20 questions with him. Like, you could ask him things. He knew what he wanted to say, but he couldn't get the words out. And we thought that would have killed him. Like, just not being able to talk, not being able to like be his big self that he was, but it wasn't. He was excited to see what God was going to do in his story. He knew it was all a part of a story. From diagnosis, it was 9 months. We knew we had between 3 and 12, so I'm grateful for the 9. I'm grateful that I could go out and see him and spend time with him. I miss him like crazy though, because he was the male version of me. He was girl crazy when he was younger. He made mistakes and he would fully tell it, like he was an open book. I knew that he had sex before marriage. He wanted to warn people of like the sexual ghosts and all this other stuff, and that God can still use you even if you're like make mistakes. He was just kind of really awesome. Anyways, that was November of 2013. Jeremy and I decided to try and have another kid. I got pregnant the following year. It was September. Unfortunately, we lost that baby. And it was like a really early miscarriage, but it still was really hard just trying to understand why. So then we had to wait a couple months before we could get pregnant again, and I eventually did. And that's Byron, who's named after my dad. I delivered him the day before, or 2 days before, so on the day that marked a year from losing our angel baby, I guess. So I was like, if I had had that baby, I wouldn't have this one here. So my wild child, like, I'm so grateful for him because he does remind me of my dad, but I wouldn't have him if I had had that other baby. So after we had Byron, I just kind of felt like I was missing something. I wanted more. I wanted connections, and I just didn't feel like I was getting that at my church. Like I didn't know how to get it. I didn't know how to get friends to come to our church. We didn't have people our age. There weren't other people with small kids. So it was just hard. I just needed some other moms around me. I needed some friends. I needed other little kids. Somebody at my church even said, you should hang out with Mandy Kohler. She's a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, she goes to Creekside. Like, her husband's the pastor. Like, why would you want me to hang out? I didn't understand that. So then Easter of 2016, like April-ish, I think. Yeah, April 2016. We found out that Jeremy's mom had lung cancer, stage 4. And that was kind of a shock. She kind of died when Heather died. We were not as close anymore, which really was hard on Jeremy. It was just really hard to see her go through that, and she didn't want us to tell people. So anyways, so we, by this time at our old church when Byron was born, another band started on their own. So we would play 2 weeks and we would be off a week. And on that off week, we told Donna, Jeremy's mom, that we could take her to church. So we took her to church. Really enjoyed it. It seemed like people were so nice there, and it was just really weird. That church was here, obviously. We had been praying for a long time. I had been praying to have friends and to have like a church home where I felt like I was being heard and belong. I just wanted more. I wanted more. I didn't know how to get that. So anyways, so since she couldn't drive, we would drive her to church. Actually, I think we actually only got to do it once, that she was well enough. So one time we came, and I don't even remember what month that was, but she passed away in October of 2017. She loved this church. On our off Sundays, we wanted to be at Creekside. Once I started getting involved here, we just felt moved and we felt filled and we felt welcomed, felt loved. That was the weirdest thing. Like when people tell you that they love you, like I didn't, like that was really jarring at first, because it's not something that you hear other from like your family very much, but this is family, so that's cool. I just find it crazy that this place that I wanted to hate, that I wanted to not work, how sad is that, is the place that I belong at and the place that God wants me to be at. After Donna passed away, we kind of were like, we just had to make this decision of we need to do what's best for our family. And I think that answers Creekside. The people are not the same people who started it. And yeah, I'm just so excited to see what God has in store for us. What a blessing. Jeremiah 29:11 has always been one of my favorite verses. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future. It's just so funny how you're like, God, lead me, where you want me to go, but not there. Don't take me there. I'm so glad that he did. I'm so glad that he brought me here, and I'm so thankful for my friendships in all of you guys. And I am excited to see what else God has in store for us here. I have no words. So I don't know. That's it. That's all. Love you guys. Okay, so I did tell you that I would show you what happens when you brush curly hair. I couldn't even find a brush because I don't own one, so I'm using a clipper guard. There we go. It's big. You should have seen it back in grade school. Ooh.